there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this Ascension update with me. So, boundaries? Definitely yes. Limitations? No. So what is this video gonna be about? It's very important right now at this time because so much is happening to really stay within our healthy boundaries, but at the same time being open, being vulnerable. So what is this video gonna focus on? We will see that later, and there's a lot of topics I want to share with you. But I want to start with something that's very simple, that goes back to the basics. So we probably already know that we had these 7 grand cross alignments, and this week, this last one culminated. The energy was very intense, and I'm sure that all of you felt it in your own way. And what this actually means in spirit is that there were 7 of these initiations in a way. And you know, we like to talk about the 7 veils when we reach forth that level of living veil free. You know, each veil brings you a certain inner initiation. And then the last 7th veil actually represents that you walk as one with all the other masters, with angelic beings, and one with your own master self. So this is what this culmination was bringing for those who are walking this first wave of ascension. And what I want to share here with this is that usually the last initiation, it's not the last, because in self-mastery journey there will always be initiations, but in unfolding of the veils, because no matter how much your soul awareness is expanded, and you can be a very advanced aware soul, and yet when you come into this physicality, when you come into physical form, there will still be things that you need to go through, because this is a journey of advancement in the body. I've shared many times it's that our body that's progressing, it's the human nature that is progressing through the elevation of our soul embodiment. So when we walk through these 7 initial gate points, you know, it's almost like these points and gateways, these pillars of sacred attunements, what happened was that each one of those brought something that came out to the surface. And I've shared before that this last one, which means that it's not really last, because, you know, the Pluto and Uranus are still going to be dancing together, just not so much at the same degree. And they will move further and further apart until, I think, 2018. And I've shared before that the period between 2015 and 2018 is very important, especially for the first wave of ascension. What this means is that something that really culminated will then be planting the seeds. We're going to start really plant those first seeds of the new era, and it's going to take some time, as you know, but we are each doing that first within ourselves. And that is why so much of our gifts are, you know, they're really resurfacing, and so much is taking place on the level of our profound being. So what's really unfolding behind the scenes is that through each of those, almost like there was a contraction so that the greater expansion then took place. And you might have had your own experience with this in your own level, of course, but we all had a collective unveiling as well. And I want to share my own personal experience as well, because, you know, I don't like to hide things. I don't like to share in a way that, you know, I'm putting everything that I experience out there, but only the crucial key points that I feel are important to share as almost like parables, as examples of how these expansions are taking place. I want to share my own example with you. So when we're going through these unveilments, a lot of times things that are really not of our true self resurface. And you know, the thoughts itself, the mind is not bad. But when we identify with those thoughts, that which comes out within these moments of unveiling, the moment we identify with it, that's what makes us be not so much in our true self. So we're always going to have these thoughts, because not all thoughts will be what we like to perceive negative or bad or self-controlling. There's not going to be everything in form of dominion. But there will also be certain thoughts that will trigger your advancement. Sometimes, you know, what happens with these great catapults of energy, you know, as much as light is activated, as much darkness also resurfaces. That is why in the global sense there's a lot of chaos. And some people are having a very hard time at this time. Not everybody's experiencing maybe what we are already experiencing in some level, but at the same time we also have these challenges. Remember, I've shared before, these are not lessons. They're not lessons, they're not karmic. These are almost like initiations that the human self starts to embrace a new level of this journey, and then that it can also be expressed in human embodiment. So what took place is that I've especially been feeling that if any of you had this sense of, because we expanded so much during this cycle of recent 3 years, this great collective purging was not just purging, it was expansion as well. So the feeling that I was feeling myself, because I expanded on so many levels, there were so many things I was, wanting to create, because our creativity is our divine, magical inner child. And when you live your inner child, you're creative. You're constantly expanding through your creativity. So that's why I call the video Limitless. It's beyond any limits. It's limitation free, because when you live your inner magical child, there truly is no limits. So you do have your inner feminine, your inner masculine in a divine sense. They come into wholeness, they complete. You self-fulfill, and then your divine, beautiful, magic child is born, and it starts to birth forth all of this creativity and amazing light that will move out, and it will touch everything else in creation. So of course, when you're living that abundance of creativity, it touches everybody around you like ripple effect. Of course, some people come because they are still hungry for this light, but like I've shared before, this is not meant for us to give off of ourselves, to give off of our light, but just to overflow with our light. That's a different thing. And it's very important, because the feeling that I was receiving was, because of this great expansion, it almost felt like we were receiving new wings. I felt, especially with the completion of my webpage, that my wings are so huge now, and that I've finally embraced my true wings. That means your true core creation self, which I already talked about in previous videos. And I will move forward a lot more in this direction too. But it felt almost like, because of these square alignments, that it brought a certain opposition, in a sense that external authorities, external events, external scenarios, or traumas even. And then when we have that in our own life, remember, not everything is to be put in a box. Let's say, oh, it's karmic. It must be karmic because it's so intense. The intensity, sometimes, we all need these wake-up calls, and things happen so you could wake up and see things in a new light, because sometimes we need those pushes, because we like this comfort zone. We like how things used to be. We like how things can be like this. But our journey of soul expansion is always like this. But it's not just a wave, it's also a spiral. So like a wave and a spiral become one. This beautiful divine conglomerate of the essence that becomes this divine creative child. And so what took place was this great wings, but all of a sudden, because you've expanded your surroundings or your physical space or the things you used to do or still like to do, all of a sudden it felt like, wow, maybe in the past something that felt expansive no longer does, and it felt like almost you can't really spread your wings all the way. And it's a good process. It's not something negative. It's not that you're now bound in the eternal delusions of your mind. It's just something that serves as a wake-up call. Is how now you will move into that freedom. How will you be able to expand your wings? Because remember, as a master, that's exactly your job. It's not to wait that external circumstances will change, but once you've had that expansion, that you've reached a limit beyond, and you want to spread the wings, and yet you still feel some resistance from the outer world moving through you, remember the state of your I am. And then remember that all that took place in each of these 7 unveilings now serve a purpose, because remember, go back, look at each time what took place. You don't have to go look at the dates and, numbers. Just feel all the things. Try to feel the basic 7 things that you were walking through as your inner initiation. First, there was spirit alignment, then it's divine trust, and all the other things are flowing up until the point when you become the inner alchemist, the inner magician self. And why is the 7th ray the ray of self-alchemy, the ray of soul alchemy? The beautiful violet flame as well comes from that ray. And it's a level of total transmutation. When you actually, whatever feels resistant and that it kind of controls you from the outset, you have the power to, again, ripple back out with your immensity of love, wisdom, and power that flow through you. Sometimes we're very loving beings, and people like to say, well, we made these things, or we didn't have enough boundaries because we have such a huge heart and we have so much love. Love is good, but it needs to come accompanied with wisdom and power as well. Because you don't function as a wholly self-realized being up until the point when you realize your divine essence, which is love, wisdom, and power, the spark of your true divine nature. So in the 7th unfolding, in the 7th culmination, the 7th unveiling, what I've noticed is it was in the body, because our bodies can still hold these fears. And although our awareness is already so much integrated, and we feel so aligned already, and we know what we're creating, and we want to do all these things, and the wings are already there. But to spread those wings, even when the circumstances are not always reflective of that, and you feel there's still chaos, or maybe you have a plan, I'm going to do this today, I'm so excited, and something else happens, and you feel that resistance, you feel, wow, there's still an external authority. And I'm going to share my own example with you, what took place very shortly, just to give you an example of how you maybe were experiencing your own things. And if you're always feeling like you don't have anywhere to share your experiences, please come and visit my Facebook page. There's a beautiful community of people who are very generous and loving, and I'm inviting everybody to share there. You're not alone. That's another message of this gateway, is we find our uniqueness, we understand our soul spark, but then it's also important to have community. And I will explain a bit about this when I share my own example. So community is becoming strong because when we know what we're here to do and our uniqueness, then it's time also to join forces with others, because of course you're here alone in the sense that what you came here to emit, to transmit, to transform and create, it can only come this way through you. Nobody else is going to do your work. For example, when I was doing my new webpage, it was all my work. It was a lot of work. But I knew if I wanted to do it through my own frequency, it needs to be done this way. So instead of doing it quickly and, somebody else doing it for me, I said, no, I will do it step by step, but it will be through my own frequency. And I knew that it's dedication, that it's work, that it's devotion. And I knew that this is very important because it can only flow through me this way. But it doesn't mean, because a lot of times we had the sense, because of this, now I feel alone. I'm always alone. I don't have others that maybe travel the same awareness, that maybe have similar experiences. I can't always share. It's not true, because I was receiving this guidance that I remember this oracle card that speaks about the archetype of the queen. And it says the queen is a wise being because she knows that she needs to have allies if she wants to rule through grounded sense as well. So we all need allies. Of course, we are alone when it comes to our I amness. We're the one who's uniquely experiencing all that we are. And what we can create can only come through us the way that it does. But when we join in community and when we open up and say, I don't need to be alone in other senses, which means physically, there can be sharing, there can be generosity, there can be assistance, there can be communion. That's the aspect we're embracing also through this seventh gateway, in a way. And I'm going to share my own experience, but I also wanted to say that really, truly observe your experiences, because they're showing you what is the main essence that's coming out. And if you're one of those beings who felt you've expanded so much, but you couldn't really always live it, it's almost like you say, I can't because this and this and that. The system is like this, or I can't really expand this because the money is not like this. It's every time we say something like this, we say, I'm aligning myself with this experience. The I am that I am says I am this experience, I'm that experience. So when you're choosing, that's what you're aligning with. But you have the power to also align with the other form of I amness, which is that freedom, which is that expansion of those wings. Because this seventh gateway, it felt like that we need to be so powerful that no matter what the chaos, no matter what the external surroundings, no matter what the system says, you can still be your own master. You can still be living your nature by breaking through the system. Because Pluto Uranus is breaking through the system and expanding into something new. Uranus is almost like a lightning bolt. When you know that you need to do something in a different way. And I had to do a lot of changes in the way I do too, because a lot of times I was giving so much, but it didn't open up to a space of receiving, which is more reciprocal, which is more energetically balanced. So when we do that, we have this sense of, okay, I'm always needed, I'm always doing this, and a lot of times the cycle is always the same. So we do things always the same way, the results will be the same as well. So what we need to do is, if we want change, we need to try at least differently tune our experience. And if each morning you get out of bed and you do things like this, and you say, maybe today I'm going to just adjust a little bit. Some people can adjust very fast, They can go from one thing to the other because they're very more, flexible. And some people are not. So they need to slightly add up the changes. But then the results will be the same, will no longer be the same. So what I want to say here is that really I'm taking it from this heart space, that to be also open and vulnerable, to accept, is because the whole experience of overflowing means that when you allow more to come in, you're saying, I'm a channel for this. I'm a channel of this divine light. You're not saying, I'm just here to do everything by myself, because then more can enter your sacred space. And of course, then you have more to give. You have more to send out as ripples and waves. So, okay, now I want to share a bit about my experience. So what took place within this last 7th unveiling for me was a very extreme situation in terms of external dynamics. I remember even before the cross, there was this feeling I had when I released the old way of doing things. And it felt so liberating. The next day I already felt so expanded. And I thought, wow, maybe that's it. Maybe I've already had my cross experiences more like internally. But then what took place is right on the alignment of the cross, at exact, almost like perfect divine synchronicity, I would say, we had a very challenging situation at home. Because somebody, a person that, I don't know what happened, how they found out where we live. They broke into our apartment. They entered in our apartment, and we really got frightened. And it was this whole messy situation, and it wasn't very pleasant. We both felt some shock and fear, and things came out because it literally felt like somebody invaded your personal space uninvited. And the feeling when you get can be on a human level, can be very shocking, because you can't believe that what you took so with such precaution and such devotion to create as your sacred space, somebody can just barge into. Somebody can just take it away from you and just enter. So with force, it feels like that, like I've said, this friction. It's like something external comes and in a moment takes that away from you. That sacredness, that your own private space, your private way of how you live your life. And as this took place, first we were in shock and we threw the person out. That's all we could do. We called the police. The police came. But what happened the next morning, at a very early morning, the person rang the doorbell again. And this time, of course, the door was locked. And I opened and I kind of like yelled at them and I threw them out again. But then we called the police again. And the second time the person rang again and I said, but what do you want? And they said certain things that were not really pleasant, and then I got this guidance that I need to distract them at least a little bit until the police comes. And then they came and they talked to him and they just told him to go home. And we had to spend all day at the police station filling the forms and telling our story. And the thing was that when I went into my true essence and I asked, look, am I going to now live in fear? Because, I like to spend most of my time outside. And, if the person could find out where you live without you sharing it publicly, your address or anything like that, that it's not very sane. And a lot of the things that were not balanced within the individual. And that kind of sense can make you feel that fear when you see that energy and when that energy enters your sacred space of purity. And it can make you very quickly move into the space of feeling separate, because that fear, like I've said, the mind itself, your thoughts, they're not bad. But the moment you identify with them, so that feeling, wow, am I in a house arrest now? How can I go out now when I know someone might come again and they're stalking us? And God knows what else was taking place. And I felt so safe in this space where I live here in the mountains, and all of a sudden I had this feeling, am I not even safe here anymore? Can I even go out? Can I run? I'm a free being. I need all this space. And this was what I've shared with the wings. You're so expanded. You just want that freedom and to live it, and all the things you receive that you're here to create. And then this happens. And there's a very subtle line that when your body gives you a signal of fear, that is fear that guides you to make action steps, or the fear that can overcome you. And then I was thinking all day, I was releasing a bit, and I was crying because it shocked me. And literally I had to admit to myself, I'm vulnerable too. And I felt this guidance. We do need allies. We do need people that support us. So we went to the neighbors and we talked to them. And we actually caused a ripple effect, because our building was not even locked. Nobody locked the building at nighttime. Here they say, oh, it's in a village, and I said, look, it doesn't matter where it is. Things can happen. Some people are just literally with these intensity, they can't handle it. So they do these actions, and, they're being guided, what they say, with the voices in their head and whatnot. And we got to be the strong ones. So sometimes it's really time to move and to make a connection with the community. And so when we went to the neighbors, we already made results, because the next, in a few hours, the neighbor comes and brings us the keys. So they say, finally, and they said, we've been waiting this for 5 years. And apparently this needed to happen. So at least now we can finally lock the door. But what I had, the shift in the evening time, I felt, no, I'm not going to live in fear, because then I punish myself. The person who actually committed a felony, this is actually a criminal act according to the law system here, when somebody breaks into your home, and it's supposed to be untouchable, your home. And what I then thought, I said, then it's my punishment, then something that the person did, it's their responsibility that they need to own. And then I'm being punished if I can go out, if I can do this or that. And you feel like this feeling somebody follows you. And then the voice said, no, I live my freedom. I can't live in fear. Of course you take the action steps, because that's the grounded way. So you see, I feel this seventh last alignment was about living your freedom, spreading your wings, but at the same time be grounded. To walk as one with masters and angels and guides is not to now walk with them here somewhere, always up there in your thoughts and your imaginative world, but to physically do the things, to have allies, to do protection steps, to do precautions, to be observant. That's the grounded way of living your mastery. So we did all that we could, but then you need to also let go. You can't live in fear. Because the neighbor said to me, wow, you're always going to be followed now. So, you're not supposed to go running. And I said, look, I'm not going to even live fear of other people. Why should I? And then when you do that, you literally almost receive an award from Spirit. And then what took place is I had a talk with my friend, and we were having such expansion. And literally, I went from not sleeping at all, because I didn't sleep at all. This week was intense so much, because at the same time, as you know, we also received a new dog, because I took care of that. My mom got a new companion. So everything happened simultaneously during that week. It was very intense. And we had the talk, and I was so sleepy. While at the same time, when I shifted the energy, I felt almost like my cells are awakening again. And it all began with the I am, that I am. And I wish to share very much more about this, because this is the quality of divine trust. And that is why I'm now recording these mastery courses, and you can find them on my page, Serapina Light, which you can see under the link below or in the general description of this YouTube channel. So these mastery courses are going to be almost like a gateways when we walk through these initiations. The first one is already recorded. It's called Aligning with Spirit, and the second one is going to be about mastering divine trust, because that's what we need for the basics of mastery. You can't move to other things, and you can't create and work with energy before you first really come into your true master presence. So what Spirit shared with me is that I need to record them in these sequences that are right and that are aligned. So each one is like subsequent to the other one, if you know what I mean. So if you're guided and you want to further expand and study in a way with me, then you can find these classes, and it's almost like a very simple process. You just make the energy exchange, and then I add you through Google Plus account in the classroom. And this one is going to be recorded now next, the Mastering Divine Trust, because that's the basics of our self-mastery. And this really feels like a true calling for me now, because when it's a calling, you're excited about it. And I always want to do things in a simple way. There's so much written in theory, but we're actually doing this. We're walking through this. And these examples, like the example I've shared with you now, are examples of awareness. It's not like we can live in theory and there's something happens like this did in our own lives, and then you can't recognize your own initiation through that. It's not a lesson. It's not even a test. It's just how you, through that, will embody what you already know in your soul awareness. So that's what it's all about. And that is why sometimes I share in an open, vulnerable space as well, because I feel all this sharing that was now available, it's too informative in sense of just information, just theory. We're becoming masters in practice, in presence. Presence is practice. So also, like I've shared during this time, we received a new dog companion, and during this week, we realized so much, because dogs and all animals in general, they are such direct sources of our reflection of our mirror self. So if you're in a certain energy, they will directly reflect that. And they're such good companions, because for me, I'm not the kind of person that would need to own an animal. I have to be free within what I do, to just go where I need to go and share what I need to share. So I very much need to be devoted to this. But when I'm looking at this and observing this and what's taking place with my mother now having this companion, and me being, of course, a part of it in our family, it feels so good, because this animal, during only 1 week, it brought such huge expansion in our lives into what is still a restrictive feeling from the outside. And I want to give you this example. In the beginning, it was very hard for my mom, because the decision was made so fast, and all she could do was, educate herself very quickly. And then she got all these books and different information, but there can be a lot of times a lot of contradiction in them. So when a person comes into this, it practices something else than theory in the books. And in the end, I said, look, you can only count on your own intuition, because when an animal and a human companion, they actually form a bond. It's a direct exchange between them. So it's like you're giving each other signals and messages. And the book only can serve you this far, and the practice is presence, and it's going to be in the now, because even what they say about dogs is that they literally live in the now, because they do something and they forget the next moment, especially when they're young and they're still in training and they're still learning about the world and exploring. But it's very important that we allow them to have their own experience. So if you have animal companions, please know that they're not your source of love. A lot of people get too attached to their animals because they've taken them as their own source of love. Of course, they're unconditional love, but so are you. You are that source. When you really have an animal as your sacred companion, and you really are not attached to it, you will only see it as a sovereign individual, even if it's a different type of spirit presence. It's still having its own experience, and you're just there to walk through it, to be a companion, to be a comrade, to be a fellow one who also experiences things, and to share. It's always about the sharing. So I wanted to really share this with you as well, and I hope you liked this video, that it helped you in a way to find your own space through these initiations. And we're having this solar eclipse as well, which is kind of like a seal of this experience. It's kind of like, that's it. And find that seal, like I've shared before, and in my energy update, find that click. What really clicked for you during this time? What was that major revelation that you had? Because the eclipse also is going to bring that. It's an energetical consciousness upgrade. And of course energetical as well, because when we speak about energy, it's you experiencing that consciousness in your, in your form, which is made of all these parts. So that is all the level we get to the quantum self, which is all these particles that are comprised of waves and a spiral. So when I asked Spirit, one crucial question about this is, why sometimes these light beings that are so full of love and light, and they attract these beings who sometimes are very much more in the dark? And Spirit said, because they don't separate. A lot of times you see people who only have positive people around them, or sometimes you see people who only have other kind of types of experiences. They still have a bit of in that dualistic polarity. But when you live in unity, when you live in synergestical experience of your wholeness, you don't separate. So whoever's meant to come to you, you don't say, oh, I don't want to have an experience with this person because I'm already living in the light. Oh, it's not a part of me. Please let me go. Remember the I am that. I am. Look at that thing. Doesn't mean now you are it, but you're also seeing it. So it all exists. It's all of source, no matter what it is. So unity consciousness does not separate. And I know people want to attract only the good things, only the positive, only the, what their mind sometimes tells them. And yet, what takes place in the actual sense of our living daily reality will sometimes differ from that. And being in your master self means making peace with that and mastering that trust. And I'll share more about that in my mastery course, so stay updated, stay tuned. I'm really excited about this new chapter. I'm really excited for all of you as well, because I'm seeing so many are now doing their own pages and their own work, which I can only say congratulations to me, to you, to all of us together as one. So take care, and as always, so much love, wisdom, and power, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hey there, someone wants to say hi. Hi, my name is... What's your name? Avalon. Okay, so that's it. Bye-bye.